And so now we can move on to item A. And of course, we could say that we weren't sure that Mr. Van Shaack would be here on time, so we delayed his his presentation, but he's been here a long time. So would you like to do an introduction or just turn him loose?
No. Thank you, Mr. Dunlop. No introduction necessary, I suppose. So this evening I have the first of many charter school reports, brief reports bi-monthly, and then twice a year I plan to give a more extensive report that will include student achievement data and more information about their fiscal standing. But for this evening, I just want to give a sort of a pre-report, a little bit of background. Just recall that last November, after many years of state oversight, the board voted to approve the renewal petition and begin the oversight by Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. And on July 1st of 2013, which is less than a month away, we will begin in our role as the oversight group for the Livermore Valley Charter School. As of this week, the Livermore Valley Charter School has moved from the Sonoma site, which was our facility, to their own facility over on Constitution Drive. Just last week, several board members had the opportunity to view that site, made some recommendations, asked some questions, and I think it was good for us to see their current status. Livermore Valley Charter School students began classes this week at their new site. We did request copies of all approved documents to ensure that they had met state and local authorizing agency requirements, and we did in fact receive those today. So we're excited that we did receive the paperwork that's necessary. In terms of budget, we have requested that they begin using our financial forms. They had their own set of financial forms in the past, and it made it very difficult for us to compare their numbers and our numbers, and so we've asked them to begin using the forms that we're more comfortable using, and they've agreed to do that. They're in the process, like we are, of creating their 13-14 budget. They're waiting for the governor to come forward with his final budget, or the legislature in the state later this month. We did conduct a cash flow analysis, and based upon the information that they gave us, we believe that they're in good standing. Again, those are unaudited numbers. We take the numbers that they provide to us and determine whether or not they have a good chance of staying fiscally sound, and Mrs. Kinder has taken a look at those. We look at their enrollment for next year, and they're projecting an enrollment of 1,120, which is pretty consistent with what they have this year. They're adding a TK program that they don't currently have, and so they're expecting their enrollment essentially stay around 120 per class level, K through 8, and again they're adding TK. I've listed basically those things that as we move forward I will be looking at when it comes to my role as the oversight person. There's 9 specific things that the state allows us to look through. I think the most important here are numbers 1 and 3, and essentially it comes down to this: are they following? You guys approved a charter petition, and that charter petition spells out very explicitly the things that this charter school intends to do. My responsibility is to make sure that they follow through on the promises that they made to the community and to the Board of Education. And so in that regard, I will be attending their meetings, meeting with their principal on a regular basis, touring their facility, looking at their financial forms, looking at test data. And basically, when it comes down to it, I'll be reporting back to the board whether or not they are doing the things that they said that they would do. And when they aren't, I will ask them to make changes, and hopefully, and I have no reason to believe that they won't comply with those requests, because they've been very cooperative so far. And what we hope is this is the beginning of a very long and cooperative and fruitful relationship between us and the school that's been a part of our community for a number of years. So I'm looking forward, as we move forward, to having a good relationship, and once again reporting back to the board, sort of brief reports every couple of months, and then more extensive reports 2 times a year. And unless the board would like more information than that, or if they have specific requests, I can comply with those as well. So again, today is sort of the beginning of many such reports.
Thank you very much. Board member questions? Mrs. Runyon?
We did go last week and review the new facilities, and one of the things that was of concern to me was the narrowness of the walkways surrounding the buildings and the difficulty that people would have in getting out of those buildings if an evacuation became necessary. And so I think that it would be prudent for someone from the district to be present for one of their mandatory fire drills and ensure that they have a process that works well for all students, including handicapped access. It's a very steep site. And as a person who spent a year in a wheelchair, I have some serious concerns about the viability of their egress plan. So I think that that's something that we just ought to work out with them come the fall.
Okay.
And I would like to just add, we did receive the results of their inspection, and we just received that today as we requested. And it does show a 30-day temporary occupancy permit with some conditions, and many of those relate to fire department final approval, signage, stripping related to handicap accessible. Other such things have to do with ramps. And so some of those things have been identified as a 30-day window of corrective action. And of course, their school will be out, so they essentially have until the beginning of August to accomplish some of these things. But some of those have been identified through the process of the inspection and notification. And so we have copies of those things, and I'm sure we'll be getting, 30 days from now, we'll be getting the results of that.
Well, and I hope in the future that when we ask for paperwork, we're going to get it prior to the deadline. I mean, a certificate of occupancy should come before the actual occupancy if we're required to ensure that they have one before they start operating. They didn't provide it to us before they opened the doors on Monday. That's a niggling thing, but on the other hand, if an incident had happened, that could have been a problem if we were the overseeing agency at the time. So, you know, I'm hoping that they're going to be more compliant with the regulations going forward.
Other board members? Mrs. White?
I'm delighted that they're going to be using the, I guess, CDE budget forms and financial records forms. It's difficult to learn one form and work real hard at it and not be somebody who does it 40 hours a week and then try to catch on. But I would like to see the budget when it's available. Don't wait for the next report to come to that. And the unaudited actuals would be nice too. And last year we got a summary sheet. I don't know if we all need to have the whole thing, but I'd like to have it available at some point just to see how it's different.
Okay.
You know, we're not liable for their debts, but on the other hand, we are liable to due diligence to find problems.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Rogie?
I just have a general question to either Ms. Kunder or you, Chris. Do they receive any federal funding at all?
I can't remember offhand. I think they have very little. I believe there is some federal funding, but it was very little, and I could follow up with that.
Well, that would go to answer Mrs. Runyon's thing about ADA access, because if you're under federal funding, you've got to be under ADA, so it might be something to look at. Thanks.
Mr. McLaughlin?
As usual, who gets hurt? Student. And there's no way in my mind that when I took that walkthrough, say that this was going to be an operating school within a week. It was absolutely ridiculous. Who owns the school? The director or the committee or the group who work in conjunction? So why don't you keep your eye on them? Thank you very much, Chris.
Okay.
And let's see, if I remember correctly, we have the right to have or appoint a board member to be on their board. In thinking about that, do you think that is something that we would be of value or helpful in understanding what's going on at the school?
I don't know that that would be necessary up front. I think if I'll be in attendance at all their board meetings if they're transparent as they should be, and we believe as a group that they're meeting the needs of the students. I don't know that I would believe that it would be necessary for us to place someone on their board. I think in some ways that would make things more challenging for us, because there'd be a little bit of a conflict for a board member who's a member of their board and a member of our board. I'd say that's something we can look at as time goes on, but I think up front, allow them to run their operation, and as long as they do the things that they say they'll do, and they are transparent in the processes, I think probably we're okay as is. But again, that's sort of a decision you folks would have to make.
Yeah, it wouldn't have to be a member of our board, it would be someone we appoint.
Somebody different.
But the issue, there are closed sessions, and you would be excluded from the closed sessions, I assume.
That's true in personnel matters.
But you might think about that and see if there are enough advantages to make it worthwhile, and a few disadvantages that might make it a problem.
Okay.
But appreciate your recommendation on that. Any other comments by board members? Any comments by any of the public? Good, we'll close that, and thank you very much. We'll move.